Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Wizard Factory Live. This is going to be an awesome show today about the unconscious feedback loop. So, I'm feeling much better today, in much better energy, much better mindset. We've got another segment from Rodney for the Astrological weather report on a very powerful Mercury retrograde that we're getting into. And of course, revisiting the topic of the unconscious feedback loop, which is one of the most powerful segments or concepts that we ever came up with regarding, cyclical traps that we can get caught in. This applies to everyone. I guarantee this is happening at some level to everyone, and self-awareness is the key. But this ties into a concept that you can find from Norse symbolism in the mythology there, as well as the Taoistic tradition as well. So it's going to be an awesome show. I'm super excited for it. Smash the like real quick and let's get into it. All right, so this is the Wizard Factory. This channel is all about giving you the spiritual tools and mindsets to live a more empowered life. My name is Logan Hart. If you're new here, welcome to our growing community of those seeking self-empowerment, spiritual evolution, and a tribal family. If this is your path, remember the tribe. Join us. Hit the subscribe button down below. Make sure you click that bell. In fact, if you're already a subscriber, double check to make sure you're still subscribed, because I'm not even joking. Like, the warfare is real. I've been watching my subscribers have flatlined and even have been diminishing, where I'm losing more than I'm actually gaining. So clearly, and I've been getting reports from people that they've had to go and resubscribe. So resubscribe if you're not, and click that bell so that you actually get a notification every time I'm live or drop a new video. All right. So, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. I'm very excited for this very powerful topic. Hopefully deliver some value, something to give you something to ponder on and apply to your life. As for that like button, you know what to do.
Smash, smash. Yeah.
All right. So we're not going to have a news segment today. We're going to be bypassing that this time and getting straight into the astrological weather report. But before we do that real quick, I will share this message about the free initiation package.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just want to take a quick moment to offer you a special gift. It's the free initiation package download. This is a free download package that includes the Toolbox mini course. I created this package to equip you with all of the essential tools you need for any type of energetic or magical practice for anyone serious about their spiritual development. It's comprised of 3 parts: the circle, the breath, and the voice, where you'll learn how to cast the Circle of the Magi, various breathwork techniques, including a powerful guided breathwork meditation, rune galler, and more. You'll also get access to the Inner Sanctum, our private Facebook group and Discord server, as well as some Wizard Factory wallpapers for desktop and mobile, all for free. And for those who've already seen this course, I'm happy to announce that this is a brand new remake with better production and even more information. You can find the link to get yours in the description below. So check it out and let's get back to the content.
All right, there you go. There's the initiation package, the QR code. Make it really easy on you. Just scan that with your phone, jump in, put in your email, and get access to that whole course and download package. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the astrology segment with Rodney. Rodney, what's up, brother? Welcome to the show.
Hey, man. It's a great day. Lots of good energy rolling around. Really deep emotional energy happening right now. We've got Saturn trining up with Mars in Cancer right now, man. And Moon getting ready to move into Scorpio from Libra. So we got some really powerful energies happening. Today, I want to get into Mercury retrograde. And when we think about Mercury retrograde, kind of the spin has always been, oh my God, run for the hills, it's Mercury retrograde, and it's not like that. We have to get past that whole devil made me do it bullshit, because these transits, these retrogrades are meant to be worked with, so we have to work with the energies that's presenting itself in context to the ethers and the solar spiral. And if we don't do that, we're missing opportunities, and we have to understand that these opportunities are presenting itself in context to planetary consciousness, high planetary magic, and planetary alchemy. So this is the process that we go through when we're doing this path work. These arts of gnosis are alive, man. They're living, and they're living inside of each and every one of us. And so we have to understand and understand how to work with those. And that's why people like me and you are doing these shows to teach, and to show people, that there's more out there. There's more to tap into. You'll never tap into all of it in your lifetime. There's just too much, so that's...
I want to add real quick to what you're saying, man, because it's so important to keep and maintain the right mindset, that
Yes.
warrior mindset. If you're just like feeling this dread and panic every time, oh, it's another Mercury retrograde, like, oh, we just finished the last one,
Right.
Seeing it from this reactive, victim-y mindset, like that's never going to get you the gains that's actually there for. It's like, think about if you're trying to become a really great skier and you're only doing the green, the little like bunny trails and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden your friend is like, hey, let's go on this, black, like, come on, it'll be fun. And you're like, a black diamond? Oh, like, but that's where you're going to get your gains from. And sure, you might like narrowly miss some trees and get a little bit treacherous, but that's the adventure, right?
Absolutely.
How can you say you're a spiritual warrior if every time that adventure comes knocking on your door, you're just like, oh no, like, everything, things were just going good or whatever, it's just that reactive versus proactive mindset of just like meeting your struggle head on. I just released a reel on my Facebook about that, of like,
I saw that. It was good.
Meeting your struggle head on, because then you're in control of
Yes.
how you're setting yourself up for that, instead of constantly trying to react to whatever life is throwing at you and just kind of blowing around in the winds of chaos. So
right. And that's the whole idea of Mercury itself. It's Mercury is the fastest moving planet, outside of the moon on the solar spiral. So what happens, man? It moves very quickly. It's your daily internal dialogue, because it runs the Gemini and Virgo gates. So what are we doing here? We're realizing that we're meeting the challenges head on and recalibrating in context to our mindset. And so Mercury right now is sitting where? Sitting in Taurus. Okay, so it's transiting the Taurus gate. And what's going to happen is it's going to move to 15 degrees Taurus. So as it moves to 15 degrees Taurus, it's going to conjunct Uranus. Now, a lot of people may not know this, but Mercury, if you want to look at, the inner planets, which are Mercury, Mars, Venus aspect, and then the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they're octaves of each other. So, with music, what an octave is, right? I mean, when you're dealing with an octave of something, you're dealing with, a note, and then you take it up 7, and then the 8th note becomes the octave, right?
It's the same note, but in a different frequency.
Exactly. So you're working with a higher octave of Uranus and Mercury. So basically they're working together. So Mercury is everything that's happening on the ground. Uranus would be accessing your higher mind, and then connecting those so that higher mind then gets channeled into the Mercurian aspect in context to Gemini, which is your internal dialogue. So what's happening is it's going to conjunct Uranus, And Uranus is sitting, I think, at 17 degrees right now. Mercury's going to retrograde at 15. So it's going to retrograde at mid-gate of Taurus. And then it's going to pull back for about, it's Mercury's usually a 6-week retrograde. So it pulls back, and then it's going to go, it'll go direct in like the beginning of June. So April 21st, we're going to see the retrograde happen. And today I want to talk about how, and it's interesting because this show, I just did a video on this. This show is exactly the video that I just did on, the feedback loops of behaviors. And in context to pinpointing where they're at, I basically looked at the generational aspect, what's in the blood and bones. So what in the blood in context to generational distortions and entities that we're dealing with in context to the bloodline, how we transmute that, how we go to war with that in an internal dialogue in context to the Gemini aspect. Because what is Gemini? It's the twins. So you cannot access Uranus, your higher mind, until you get to the place where you are able to navigate your Gemini. See, Gemini is a mutable energy. You take it to Libra, it's cardinal energy or initiatory, and then you take it to Uranus, it's fixed. So that's how the air aspect works to those three air placings.
Could it be said that your Gemini is also like your masculine and feminine properties?
Yeah, you could say it's like the polarity, not positive and negative charge.
And like your left and right brain hemisphere.
Yeah, exactly. Left and right hemispheres of your mind, right?
Working together to reach that higher intelligence.
Exactly, because you got to be able to work with both sides of your hemispheres and bring them into what? The 7th gate, which is Libra, which are the scales, right? And that's the balance and harmony within yourself in context to what? Being able to access your higher air element or your higher thought, your higher mind in context to what Uranus represents, which is your sovereignty, your free will, your nonconformist, your maverick, your awakening, internal dialogue, awakening, all that is in that 11th gate. And that takes it back to like ancient shit as well, going into the Atlantean cycle as well with the Uranus grid works. So when you're dealing with Mercury and Uranus as octaves, you got to understand that Libra is the key to, accessing the elements of the magician. And with Mercury retrograde, it's all about becoming the magician of your own life. That's because what corresponds with Mercury? The magician card, right? So it's the magician card that's running in context to the Mercurian energies to, what it is that you have to actually do on a daily basis and stay on it. So what happens when Mercury is retrograding, it's pulling back. What is it doing? It's going internal now. See, it's going into a shadow. We are in the shadow period of the retrograde. So it's slowing down and the shadow period is starting to appear. So this is where you can go and really begin to work with your shadow aspect. And this is what I'm talking about. These generational entities, we can call them egregores, we can call them, whatever, gridworks, whatever you want to, but they are created by the human race, by the human consciousness. Demons, angels, it's all created out of the mind of the collective. Because if you take it back to the first cosmic principle is what? State of mind in context to the Hermetica and what we're trying to actually accomplish here, which is what you referenced to in the beginning of the segment in context to where's your state of mind, right? So the state of mind, when it's being wrote in on in context to these entities, what's happening? They're keeping you on these behavioral loops. And so you keep looping over and over in context to what's coming up in the blood. See? And so your blood then becomes the thing that you have to transmute in context to your generational line. That's why you're here. It's one of the purposes why you're here is to what? Transmute the blood. And this is why the psyop happened in Christianity in context. Oh, Jesus did it all for you. He sacrificed his blood for you so you don't have to do it. That's all bullshit. You do have to do it. See? And that's the victim savior mentality that we get pulled into in context to these behavioral loops that we keep going on and over and over and over in context. So when we're dealing with Mercury retrograde, right, and this is a powerful retrograde because not only is it going to conjunct Uranus, but it's going to pull back, and it's going to conjunct the North Node that it's in Taurus as well at 4 degrees. So what's that saying? That's saying that with that Taurus and North Node, this is an area that you need to look at in context to the Taurus energies. And that's the 3D world, man. And when we're looking at the 3D world, when we're looking at Taurus, what do we have to look at? We've got to look at Venus, because Venus anchors the Taurus gate in context. So where is Venus going to be during this time of the retrograde? Venus is going to be in Gemini. It's going to enter Gemini here in the next week. So this is where the Mercurian gate is anchoring in context to its energy to Gemini. See, so it's setting up the Gemini aspect for us with Venus, because Venus anchors the Taurus gate. Do you understand that? The Venus is anchoring the Taurus gate and the Libra gate, right? When Venus enters Gemini, Mercury's retrograding in that gate. So it's teaching us the lessons of Gemini in the Taurus gate, which is what? The polarities in context to being able to balance and bring things, because you have to hear the messages, because what is Mercury? It's the messenger of the gods. So you've got to be able to hear those messages. And when it's pulling back, what is it about? It's about, because it's already retrograded this area. I mean, it's already transited this area once. So it's pulling back again through that gate, that Taurus gate, because you missed things. You didn't catch everything as it was transiting. Right? So it's going to pull back so you can recalibrate and hear those messages. But if your mind is being, you're double-minded and you're being pulled left and right, you're not going to hear those messages until you come into that balanced 7th gate. See? And then once you access that, right, then your higher aspect of Uranus can come online, because what's happening? It's coming up to Uranus. It's going to conjunct Uranus, but it's not going to make a zero conjunction. It's going to be 2 degrees. So, and then it's going to pull back because we're not quite ready yet to break through to the other side in context to this gate yet, right? And the Uranus energies and having this another level of leveling up our consciousness in context to our higher aspect and our higher self. So what's it going to do? It's going to pull back, and this is where we get the messages. The messages come to us, where we need to recalibrate, what we missed, how can we do it differently to get a better outcome of something. And when we're dealing with feedback loops and behavioral loops, sometimes, and this is how it works in the unconscious, subconscious mind, you're not even aware of it. You don't even know you're doing these. And so that's what these retrogrades are about, because it's helping you to access, the awareness that you need to make the correct choices, to recalibrate your internal dialogue. So when it goes direct, then it goes as without. See? So it's as within during the retrograde, and then it pops as without. So that's where you take the action in context to this, see, to make the changes. And this is how we draw in these generational entities that have been kicking our ass in our blood in context to what has been the distortions in our family line. I've been dealing with it now for quite a few weeks in my family line, and I had to set the traps, because this is how you do it. You set the fucking traps for these things as a magician and a shaman of your own life, and then once you recalibrate, boom, you drop the hammer, because you can have no mercy on these things, man, on these generational entities. They're there to keep you on the feedback loops of behavior so they can continue to harvest your energy. That's the reason. That's the deal, man. And so when you're working with Mercury retrograde, you got to stay on it. You can't take a day off in context of that, because you only get 3 a year, right? So maybe 4 if we have an extended cycle, but most time it's 3 retrogrades a year. So
only 3. Oh,
yeah, I know, right? So you're dealing with what? You're dealing with that 6-week period when you can go internally with everything that's moving in your life and really make the big changes. See, really make the powerful changes. That's why the retrogrades are there. Mercury retrogrades more than any other planet. So when we're dealing with this, we're dealing with with the messenger and the message. What messages are we getting? And then we become the message to our own life. Then at that point, we become the magician. But look, until you learn how to navigate your moon energy, you're not going to be able to access this because you aren't accessing your actual, thought and emotion and keeping it in alignment. Because where is the moon? This is why they lock us down at, is the moon and Saturn connection, right? So all the inversions in context of the ignorance and karmic aspects of Saturn that we haven't, lessons that we haven't learned, and our lack of awareness and ignorance, and then jamming the moon in context to our thought and emotion, and with that Gemini aspect with Mercury pulling us right, pulling us left, pulling us back right, pulling us back left in context to the law of rhythm and the pendulum. See? And so we're never balanced. We're never finding actual rest within ourselves and peace within ourselves and harmony within ourselves and our heart being light as a feather, because we're always weighed down with all the circumstances of our behavioral aggregate and how we're actually doing things and the actions that we're taking that are out of alignment. And that's why Mercury retrograde is so powerful, because it can really teach us in that moment, and we can hear the messages that are coming in because we have attained that seventh gate. We can actually hear the messages.
Misty says, "Fuck, working on myself is hard," and that's so true. But you know what else is hard? It is even harder: staying the same. Continuing to make the same mistakes and ram your head into the wall.
Yeah.
So it's like pick your poison, right? Also, amazing, Rodney. Amazing breakdown, amazing, insights and everything, and into how to be empowered moving into this. Because like these energies, as we talk about every time, these energies are at play whether you're aware of them or
That's
not.
right. Yeah.
So awareness is key, and awareness is the key to your empowerment. How you're meeting things head on, like I was talking about earlier. So in this case, as you're saying, this is all about receiving those messages. So if I was to kind of add on to what you're saying, perhaps that during this time, it would be a good time to make extra sure. I mean, this is important regardless, but especially now, to create space for yourself, to be alone, to be in the quiet, in the calm, away from distractions, away from all the outside noise trying to disrupt your messages. Like it's giving you other messages of all the other agendas out there that aren't yours. It becomes even more important to shut that out, at least even 5-10 minutes, whatever you can manage in a day, to sit with yourself and really feel into and tune into your internal signal and receive those messages and actually be able to use those. Otherwise you're missing out on that, and you're not getting the full benefits of this period.
Asking, seeking, and knocking during this period is imperative.
Yes.
You got to ask for things, man. You can't, you've got to be passionate about it, because you got to ask the internal questions within you. Where do I need to change? What patterns have I established that are destructive in my life, that are creating distortions, that are creating a vibrational correspondence that I don't want in my life anymore. I want to change, and reaching out for that, having that passion to receive, becoming the receiver during this time, and that's what it really is all about. You're becoming the receiver of the messages from the gods, whatever pantheon or whatever archetype you're working with in context, when you're talking about generational entities or egregores that have been built, and constructed in your family line, and trying to actually dismantle that energy. See, that's, we can call them demons, whatever, but you're dismantling the energy so it has no effect on your line anymore. It ends with you. See, this is where it has to end. These behaviors just keep going on. I saw it in my father. I saw it in my grandfather. The same energies, the same behaviors that just kept repeating themselves as a kid over and over. And I thought to myself, man, this is crazy. It's insanity. It is mental illness. It is narcissism, 2.0. I saw in my family line, dysfunctional to the max. And this thing jumps. See, it jumps, so Sometimes maybe, one doesn't get it as much and then it jumps to the next. And then boom, they get hammered with a double portion. And so you're dealing with what? You're dealing with the actual entity or demon, if you want to call it, that has been created in your family line in context to ignorance. See how we've been ignorant of cosmic principle and natural law in our generational line. And that's why it has to end with us. We are the magicians of our line. We came here to transmute the bloodline. See, there's thousands of people that have come in before you to bring you into existence in context to your physical makeup. Just think about how many connections had to be made in the generational aspect to get you here where you're at right now in your physical makeup, and then you incarnate into this bloodline for a reason. We're here to change this shit. And if everybody would take responsibility for transmuting their bloodline, we would have major breakthroughs on the collective level in context to the dialogue that's going on this planet. This is why they throw the distractions out day after day, week after week. They build the psyop, they construct it. This is why these dark magicians are so powerful, because they actually take time to construct something and make a grid work and make a cube so that you get pulled into that cube in context to consciousness. And then all they do is they're just reeling in the energy, man. They're just reeling it in because you're on the same behaviors, and all they got to do is a couple things, and boom, there you go, man. We got you in. We got you locked in the spider's web, man. You are now our food. See? And this is the reality of it. I'm not painting a doom and gloom picture. It's just the reality of how it works.
Right.
You have to become the magician. You have to become the magician, right, of your life, of your line, of your family line. And you have to take the stand and say, it ends with me. This is the place where it gets transmuted and transformed. And this is where I cut the head off of that demon, man, of those entities that are in my line. I get my sword out, which is your thought, right? In your higher aspect, and you start navigating the King of Swords in your life.
Right. I love your passion, man, and thank you for sharing those insights with us. And it's so interesting too how the topic that I'm going to be getting into here today just so happens to coincide so perfectly with what Rodney had already prepared. This was not planned. We hadn't even really been much in discussion this week. And I kind of landed on this topic last minute because I was going to do another one. But the person I wanted to have do that with me was not available. So I pivoted towards this. And then look at this. It's perfectly lining up with the energies. This is just like what I was talking about, how these energies are at play and they're affecting you subconsciously, unconsciously, whether you're aware of it or not. And so, like, this is just one example of living, literal proof of that, of how this perfectly coincided with what he's talking about and what I am going to be discussing today. They fit perfectly together. And he's already been talking about unconscious loops and this kind of thing. And like, we had zero premeditation on that. So I just
find that really cool, man.
Really fascinating.
Yeah, those type of synchronicities are really powerful, because it really tells you that this is the alignment, and this is what does need to come out. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be discussed. And then we need to set protocols and action towards making the change.
Right. So, yeah. So that wraps up the astrological segment. I'm going to briefly touch on a post that I made this week that I wanted to bring some attention to, and then I'll bring Rodney back in to join in on the discussion today. So thanks, Rodney. We'll see you in just a little bit.
Thanks, man. It's great.
All right. Give some love for Rodney in the comments. Again, thank you everyone for being here. I appreciate you all and for engaging in the chat. That really enhances the experience, I think, both for me as putting this show on, but for everyone else as well. I really want to encourage and cultivate that tribal feeling that this is a place that we can all come to, talk about these difficult subjects, empowering subjects. It's not all doom and gloom, but some of it's pretty heavy. But the beauty is that we're all here in this together. So, you know, hit the like button for unity and tribe, and share the love there. All right. So this is a post that I wanted to bring some attention to. I just, so a bit about me and the way that I share on my social media. This is the main form of post that I do, very short form, almost like quotes or just like almost like memes or something. And I leave them intentionally a little bit ambiguous. And the reason I do this is because I want to make you think. I don't want to spell everything out for you. I think that kind of cheapens the magic for in the potency of what I'm trying to achieve. If I gotta talk about every little aspect, in this post, like the brevity of it is what's so potent about it. Is it's short, but it packs a powerful punch, right? But the other thing is, it leaves all this room for the viewer to add their projection, to make their assumptions, and then to come at me with that in the comments, right? Okay, so that's great for my post. They're getting engagement. People projectile vomiting all over the post, and more people see it, which is great. So thank you for that, trolls. I appreciate that. But also, it gives you that opportunity to reflect on yourself, right? I'm not your dad. I'm not going to hold your hand. If you're going to make false assumptions and come at me, I'm going to be all I have to do is hold up that mirror and show you, like, this is what you're doing. So, keep that in mind. Those who follow me, that I do this for a reason. And people complain about this sometimes. They're like, well, you didn't talk about this or you didn't say that. And it's like, but I don't have to, right? Truth is self-evident. It's there anyways. Yes, I'm supposed to be some kind of teacher, and that's all fine and well. You want to ask a question about it or discuss it, that's what the comments are for. Okay. And I'm happy to get into any little detail and nuance about it down there. But the post is there to just be that little tidbit to make you think. And so this post here is a perfect example of that, of how it's very simple, but I didn't spell everything out. So power can only corrupt the powerless. Yeah, so it's a little bit vague and ambiguous. So what do I mean by this? What I mean is power, especially when people think of power, it's usually like some sort of authoritarian power. I'm not talking about, power derived from within, or, like the power you get from your good positive mindset or lifting weights or something like that. I'm talking about things like government power, power over other people. That kind of power can only corrupt the powerless. And I mean, not people without power, I mean like people without internal power. So it's kind of a play off of this kind of cliche idea that power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, keep in mind that kind of power only attracts people that are disempowered within themselves. People that are truly empowered, they don't want that kind of power. It doesn't appeal to them because they're self-sourcing anyways. Their power comes from creating things, from serving others, and that power is then reciprocated back to them. They don't need to take or force anything. That's the way natural law works. That's the law of Gabo if you study the runes as well. So, I just wanted to kind of share that, not only to share my philosophy behind the way that I post, and encourage you to go follow me on social media. You can find those links down below. If you click the Wizard Factory link tree, it has Logan's links at the bottom. So, follow me there because I post a lot of this kind of stuff nearly every day. That's just it's not a 3-hour live show, right? It's just a little tidbit that you can get in your daily scrolling that'll hopefully provoke a new type of thought, a new perspective, and that's ultimately my intention. This post too, it got quite a lot of good engagement, but for some reason it triggered people. And it's like, how is it me saying that authenticity is good and conformity is less than good? How that triggered so many people, I don't really understand. Uh, if you want to go check out that post and read through some of the comments, it's quite amusing and astounding. But anyway, so all that to say, I wanted to share that and encourage those who haven't yet to go follow me on social media. So, moving on, let's go ahead and get into the topical discussion for today. I'll bring Rodney back in here too. So, today we're discussing the unconscious feedback loop. So again, this was a concept that was in one of our early podcast episodes. We actually did 2 different ones on it, but it's just such a great concept. I wanted to get into it again, and plus, it's been a few years at this point. So these kind of ideas and concepts, they're evergreen, right? Like they're always applicable when you're talking about universal truths, natural law. It's timeless. It's the same reason you can read Shakespeare that was written hundreds of years ago and still get value out of it, because the human experience, times may change, technologies change, cultures change, but the human experience at like the fundamental level and natural law does not change. And so, like, learning these lessons, and when you learn a lesson too, you're going to learn it again. And that, that's a positive feedback loop, because everything moves in circles, cycles.
Yeah.
And so you can, it's about, is it serving you, or is it keeping you kind of locked in? So, let's go ahead and break down this concept here. So, to understand the unconscious feedback loop, I want to point to a concept from Norse mythology. This is known as the 9 worlds that correspond to this right here, is called the Aegishholmer, or the Helm of Awe, as it's also called. This is a magical symbol. Each of these is what's called a stav, which means a staff. It's basically like an antenna or a conduit of energy. That's how I like to look at it. But there's 8 points, much like a compass, and these do correspond to the directions as well. And then the 9th world is in the center. So in the middle, you have Midgard. This, represents the realm, the reality, as well as you are Midgard, because as with anything, there's a external and an internal aspect to everything. Law of correspondence, as within so without. So each of these, there's going to be kind of an external and internal. So you start here in the north. This is Niflheim, and this is the frost land, or frost home, that signifies unmanifested potential. That's going to be very important in this talk as well. And then you move clockwise around this like a compass. You have northeast, which is Asgard. This is the home of the gods, the Aesir, and it signifies your beliefs, right? The beliefs that you hold about the world. Then in the east is Jotunheim, or the giant home, which is signifying the ego, or how you relate to yourself, which is what the ego really is just your sense of self. Southeast, you have Svartalfheim, which is the dark elves, or the dwarves, you could say, which, as you know, dwarves live where? Underground, in the subconscious mind. Okay, so in the subconscious mind, this is where the dwarves are creating from, just like this, you're creating from your subconscious mind. In the south, you have Muspelheim, which is the fire home, which is the realm of action, right? Fire, action, will, your passions. Then you have Helheim, which is Mother Hela oversees the realm of known as hell, which is a place that you go to reflect on your life after death. And it's a place of self-reflection, which is really important. And this place right here is going to be also very key in this discussion here, or this concept. And this is your unconscious mind. So again, you go to hell to reflect on your mistakes potentially, or just the life that you lived, and reflect on the unconscious, right? Things that you weren't aware of. Then in the West, you have Vanaheim, which is the home of the Vanir, and this represents how you relate to others. So if you notice too, every kind of direction, if you go directly across, there's sort of another correspondence there, right? So this is yourself in the East. In the West, you have how you relate to others. In the Northwest is Alfheim, which is the elf home, and this is the realm of the ancestors, the ascended masters, your guides, this sort of thing. And then you come back to the north. So it works in a circle, and this is how the loop is supposed to work. But what happens is, when you have unconscious trauma that manifests here in your unconscious mind. Sorry, I know the mouse is doing something weird on the screen. I don't know why it's doing that. It creates what's called a ghost door that leads back up here to Asgard, and you're basically going to bypass these three worlds. So how you relate to others, the realm of the ancestors, and the realm of unmanifested potential. It's cutting you off from that. So you have unconscious traumas in your unconscious mind that are then going to play into your beliefs about the world, which then becomes your identity, right? Your ego. That's how we work. We identify with our beliefs, right? And then that bleeds down into the subconscious mind, which is where we are acting from most of the time. So that's where you're that plays into your actions. And then through that actions, there's that feedback loop that's going back into your unconscious mind again. And typically through these behaviors that are very self-destructive, you're actually creating further trauma for yourself, which is just playing more into this dynamic of the trauma in your unconscious mind, and so on and so forth. So what is a feedback loop? A feedback loop can be defined as a process in which some portion or all of a system's output acts as an input for future operations. So as a musician, for me, when I think of a feedback loop, I think of when you get microphone feedback. Have you ever been like where someone's speaking on stage, or they're doing karaoke or something, and all of a sudden the microphone starts making this harsh, shrill, high-pitched sound like ee, and everybody goes, ah, right? That's a feedback loop. What that is that the sound output from the speakers are hitting the microphone, which is an input device,
Right.
and so it's basically cycling itself back into itself, and the louder the sound becomes, the louder the input gets, and the louder it's coming back out again. So it also amplifies and perpetuates itself. That's also key to remember when you're looking at this from an allegorical perspective, is that it plays into itself, right? It builds up and it gets worse and worse. And the noise of your own unconscious self-destructive behaviors become louder and louder, just like that squealing sound in your mind, until you can't take it anymore, and you have to finally take a look and say like, what am I creating from all of this? So that's the concept of the unconscious feedback loop in a nutshell. Is the unconscious trauma opens up the ghost door. Also, this corresponds to the Bagua in the Taoist tradition as well, which is another interesting kind of parallel. Again, how these truths are universal, and they'll show up, in cultures that were not necessarily taking influence from each other. So that trauma feeds into our belief systems. We become identified with them. That seeps off into our subconscious mind. We then take action on it. That then pushes them further into our unconscious mind. And what is that doing? It's cutting you off from these three aspects: how you relate to others, how you relate to your ancestors, and your ability to bring in unmanifested potential. So that's going to be very important as we get further into this. It's going to put a strain on your relationships. The other people, they aren't stuck in the same loop that you are, right? And your dogmatic beliefs and your actions are going to alienate other people around you.
Yeah.
Again, think of religion and conspiracy theories and things like that. And it's all based off of projection then as well, because then whatever's going on in your internal mind, and if you're not being aware of that, you're going to be projecting that onto other people, which is going to create even further disconnect from in your relationships. It's going to cut you off from healing and guidance from your ancestors and your guides, the ascended masters, those who have already learned the lessons, right? And they can see what's happening here. So you'll, again, remain stuck in the loop because you're cut off from that guidance. And you'll be stuck in the realm of effects rather than in the realm of causation, because you're coming from an unconscious place. You're running on programming and you're being reactive rather than proactive, a concept that I talk about just constantly because that's so important about how to be, remain in a state of empowerment. And, that's cutting you off from your creative potential. That's cutting you off from your imagination as well. Like you're running on these these unconscious programs. You're not able to use your mental power, the principle of mentalism, to imagine a different outcome and to create a different future, right? And this is why the original episode that we did was called "Why History Repeats." So, this is like a cliche of like history repeats. Well, why is that? It's because typically, and when you look at a history book, it's mostly just trauma playing out, right? On a mass scale, you got wars and, just these endless cycles of trauma playing out. And this is why. So the same thing applies on an individual level as at a a societal, a national level, a cultural level. These things are all playing out. So before I now that I've shared this concept as a whole, before I dive in and start looking at specific examples, I wanted to see, Rodney, if you had anything to add or sort of reflect on what I've shared so far.
Yeah, taking it to the Spart-Alfar, or Svartalheim, it's also Nithvalir, which is, like you said, the home of the dwarfs. In context, what do the dwarfs do? They build the tools for the gods, right? They construct those tools. Well, that's that's that subconscious aspect in context to how you do that work within yourself. You become that dwarf in context to building or reconstructing your subconscious mind.
Mm.
And so that's part of the process in context to removing, the aspect of the dark elf within you, taking it to the opposition, which is what? Alfenheim, right? Which is where, the light elves are, see? And that's taken in context to your higher self, So you're working with your lower aspect in context to the subconscious mind and how things are outputting, to your subconscious aspect, to vibrational correspondence. And you're not even aware of, doing these behaviors and these loops that are creating this distortion in context to being in the dark, bumping into walls, not really being able to navigate anything. And so that's where, if you take it back to the desolation of Smog, what were they trying to do? They were trying to reclaim their home as dwarfs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they went into their castle, and who was there? The fucking dragon was under the gold, right?
Right.
right? So that's protecting the dragon is the shadow dragon is protecting the gold so you can't access it. So what do you have to do? You have to face the fear.
Yes.
See?
Great tie-in with that allegory from Lord of the Rings, because I mean that's, I think, one of the most amazing, powerful pieces of modern mythology ever created in the last like hundreds of years is Tolkien's work.
Oh,
And
incredible.
I mean,
Yeah.
just yeah, by far.
And then
And so
I noticed somebody referenced the Wizard of Oz up here in a
yeah,
comment.
yeah, there.
Interesting, interesting on that. Just taking a little tidbit with that. You know, when you take it back to the beginning of that movie, what's going on. Okay, so Mrs. Gulch, she's trying to what, bring a lawsuit against what, the family, because of the dog bit her. The dog's name is Toto, right? So what are we dealing with here? And then the tornado, right? So we're dealing with all this internal tumultual stuff within us in context to our family line, our blood, the aspects, right, that are going on with that. And so when Dorothy goes into the dream state in context to Neptune, which is what we're dealing with in that area there where the tornado hits and she's in this dream space where she's seeing all these figures come in front of her as the house is whipping across in the ethers, right? And then it drops right into Oz. And what does it drop on? The Wicked Witch of the East. Right? What is the East? It's the ego, man.
Mhm.
See?
The self.
The self, right? So it's dropping on her ego aspect in context to who she is, and she's trying to find her way where? Home. See? And in the original book, the slippers were silver, which is representation of the moon
Right.
energies. See? And so when you look at that, you start to see, and then what is her opposition? Her opposition is the Wicked Witch of the West, right? Which is what, others in context, or your empathy, or the empathy aspect in context of Anaheim. See? So when you're looking at this aspect of that wheel, you can see it in the Wizard of Oz. It just plays out, in context to even astropsychology. If you look at it, it plays out to that. I mean, that wheel that you just showed, when you're looking at, the ego and others, that's the 1-7 axis, Aries Libra.
Mm.
See? And then when you take it to Niflheim and Muspelheim, that's the 10-4 axis in context to Cancer and Capricorn. See?
Amazing.
Yeah. So when
Also,
you see how those work in context of the wheel on the astrology. See? So it all ties in context to Gnosis. When you can weave the threads through it, you can see it. See? That's just
right.
creating the awareness and putting in the work in to doing the study,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to understand the fundamental knowledge, and then you have to have the perspective of paganism, which allows you to
Right.
see
Right.
in allegory, and you see the not only the literal of what's happening in these stories, but the metaphorical of what is it pointing to. Taking it back to Smaug, and how he's protecting this gold.
Right.
That's the alchemical gold of self-knowledge.
Yes.
The ego is high obscuring that from yourself. And ironically, in The Wizard of Oz, it's a yellow brick road, right? Follow
Right.
the yellow brick road. And that has a dual meaning, because if you're looking at from like, how do you find your way to the Wizard of Oz, right? The heart of the control system, the matrix,
Right.
you follow the money, which is
Right.
the gold bars, the yellow
Exactly.
bricks.
Yeah.
But that's a proxy for the true gold of self-knowledge. So
Right.
to find the way to yourself and self-knowledge, you have to go through that wizard. You go all the way there and confront that big scary with the flames and the whatever, because your true self lies on the other side of that. Just like you said, you have to face the dragon to get to
Right.
that, to the
Right.
treasures. That's the same allegory, ironically. I love how that lined out perfectly, because it's pointing to the same thing there. It's like you have to be willing to
Right.
face that self in what the subconscious trauma. That's what's perpetuating this feedback loop, because the trauma is what creates a takeover of the R complex, the reptilian mind, the fucking
Yes.
dragon brain.
Right.
Smaug is running your show
That's right.
because that trauma is engaged and has you locked in survival mindset.
Yes.
And it's going to be protecting you from being your truest self and balancing that out.
Right, exactly. And if you want to look at the Wizard of Oz in context to the relationships, what are we dealing with there? We're dealing with the elements, the Tin Man representing the earth element. What did he want? I wanted a heart, that's Venus, dealing with, that's Taurus, dealing with the aspect of the scarecrow, that's the air element. He wanted his mind, right? And then you're dealing with what? The lion, right? The fire element in context to Leo. Your courage and your strength, and Dorothy representing what? The emotional aspect. And then Toto is the dog, which represents what? Everything. That's the ethers. That's in context how you bring it all together. And Toto becomes
unity.
what they actually want. This is what they want. They want everything. And if you look at in context to what the Wicked Witch of the West it represents lawyers and judges. It represents the system of domination and control in context to the matrix system and the duress of violence that we're always under all the time.
Right. The flying monkeys of the police and the military coming in. And and again, I'm loving that we're just kind of on the fly, like diving into this symbolism here, because I love this stuff. But Toto, I like that you pointed out it's everything, right? Total is like the totality, right?
Yeah,
totality
Latin,
of everything.
Toto, right? Latin, right?
Right, but it's also unity and togetherness.
Right.
What is the four? You've got Dorothy, Tin Man, Scarecrow, and the lion. These are the aspects of self.
Yes.
Emotions, thoughts, heart, and action.
Yes.
Courage and everything.
Right.
And Toto is what synthesizes and brings those things
the
together.
Fifth element, yes.
There's a dual meaning there, because the witch is after the dog not only because she wants to control and own everything, but she's trying to destroy the unity of the self internally, as well as the unity of everyone in terms of like the masses. She's trying to destroy that.
Right, exactly.
And together, that's what brings down the wizard.
And what is her name in the when Dorothy wasn't in dream state? The gulch, a gulch. See,
right? And
what is a gulch? It's a place of entrapment. It's like a ravine. It's something you fall into.
I see it as the unholy feminine.
Exactly, man.
Like, the magical chasm that's craggy and just wants to swallow everything up.
Yes, that's the female Illuminati, man. Michael Tsarian gets into that. Yeah.
Damn. Spicy, man. I love this. So moving on and getting into a bit more of the practical aspects of this. So, when it comes to these systems, these loops, these programs, and you want to view them in action, look no further than statism and religion. These are by far the most prevalent and effective and powerful forms of mind control that has people just straight looped, and just completely cut off from themselves and what they're creating through that program. First of all, we can look at them together. Like, they're both based in fear. They're completely everything that the belief systems themselves of statism and religion are built upon are predicated on fear. And you have to have that fear present and be submissive to it, or else none of the other shit works. And so, and then on top of that, they're both systems of coercion. One is claiming dominion and threatening your physical self, statism, right? They own your body. They can dictate and control what you do with your body, the actions that you can and can't take. And then religion does the same thing, but on a spiritual level. And that takes over the rest of your mind when it comes to how you're viewing the world from a spiritual perspective. And what are they both threaten? Jail and hell. It's ironic that they both rhyme with each other. Jail and hell are the two bad things that you're supposed to be super scared of, and that's what keeps you in line with your behavior. And you're teaching children this as they're coming to understand, what is this world, how does it work. You're indoctrinating them with religious beliefs and telling, the parents usually are teaching them religious beliefs, putting them in Sunday school. I went through
Hmm.
this myself.
Yeah.
From a very young age, you're taught, you know you're supposed to be afraid of God. A good person is a fearful person that fears the Almighty. And
Fear. Yeah. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, right?
yeah, exactly.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, you like that. That's child abuse, is
Yeah.
what it is, and it's trauma. And then, in school, it's teaching you that, like, all your rights come from government, and that without government and without the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and everything, like, there would be lawlessness and chaos, and that's perpetuating fear of freedom,
Right.
and equating that government equals law and order, and without it is total chaos. And freedom is a scary thing, right? It's a dangerous thing. And again, it's like they both have this kind of idea of original sin baked into them, of people are too evil and ignorant to rule over themselves in the physical, right? So they need government. Anytime you need blank, that is a narcissistic gaslighting right there.
Yeah.
You don't need anything outside yourself, and you are autonomous. That means you're self-governing. And then, God, Jehovah, whatever, Jesus, is telling you the same thing. Like, you're flawed, you're sinful, you're wretched, on as you were born. You need the salvation of Christ to be a
Right.
complete and whole person. It's so harmful and traumatic. And this is what I'm getting at, is these teachings and these beliefs are creating trauma that fuel and perpetuate the system. And, like Abrahamic religion especially, it paves the way to believing in statism. You have to
Yeah.
accept this. People are icky, flawed things. That paves the way to accepting the belief system that we need
Yeah. They're
government that is an extension or a proxy of God's authority.
right.
It even says in, like, Romans
Yeah. It
13 or
does.
whatever, it's talking
Yeah.
about how no governments exist without being, like, ordained by God or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
It's insane.
And you should obey all the laws and rules and regulations.
Right, because
Yeah.
that's extension of God's law and God's rule and everything like that. It's such nonsense.
Yeah. And they talk about the separation of church and state. There is no separation.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the same thing. It's just dealing with your physical and spiritual aspect.
And that's just bringing in this quote unquote new world order,
Yeah.
because
Right.
the old world order was the marriage of church and state, because they're two mechanisms of the same thing. And this new world order of the state, they're destroying any concept of God and spirituality altogether, and then the state becomes God. That's
Right.
what the real new
Right.
world order actually means.
Which is the actual religion that we're dealing with here.
Yes, and it is a religion, and
Yeah.
that's a great point that plays into this. When I say statism and religion, they're two different things, but it's two different ways of looking at. It's like a lens to look at, because statism is a religion, and religion is a form of statism as well. It's a
Yes.
claim of dominion over your mind, your body, your actions, your soul, your very fucking
Your
soul.
soul.
It owns
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just two sides of the same coin there. So, let's just kind of take this and look at it one by one, in terms of the context of what the picture that I painted with this unconscious feedback loop, where you see the cycle and you see those three aspects that you're being cut off from access to, right? So
Yes.
with statism, first you got your relation to others. Well, it violates others by its very nature. And if you're voting, first of all, you're abdicating, or you're advocating, I should say, uh, harm and violence on other people. that's about as bad as it gets when it comes to your interpersonal relationships. Is you're
Yes.
advocating for a system that's going to enforce your way of thinking how things should be done
Right.
onto other people. And this is why government or politics gets fanaticized, right? People become so fanatical and fervent about their politician, their party, whatever it may be, because that's coming from that place of unconscious trauma. They're so terrified of being oppressed by the government that their subconscious mind is driving them to, like, well, if we just vote hard enough, then at least our rulers will be in favor of what we want and oppress the other guys, otherwise they're going to oppress us. It's totally like inconsistent and fallacious thinking, and
Yeah,
it's
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 terrible, man.
psychopathic. So
It
there's
is.
your it's cutting you off from your healthy relationships from other people because you're just advocating violence on them,
It's actual insanity,
and
man.
and
What it
seeing them
is.
as your enemy. It's
Yeah.
actual insanity. Seeing them as your enemy, it's creating arbitrary division based
Yeah.
on things they're not real, they're constructs. And and of course voting perpetuates the cycle too, so it's cutting you off from the unmanifested potential of a new reality, because it's just a cycle. Government does what government does, people get mad, and then instead of seeing government as the problem, they just vote, well, we got to vote him out of office and get this new person in here and they're going to clean this mess up. It's a
Right.
cycle, it's a fucking hamster wheel.
Yeah.
It just keeps going and going and going because people aren't getting the lesson.
It,
It's staying unconscious,
it's
and it's not, and
yes.
you'll never get a different outcome from it.
And it's how they manipulate the law of rhythm as well in context to the pendulum swing.
Mm. Yes, because it's always cycles. You got,
Yeah.
these 4-year election
Yeah.
cycles and midterms and all this kind of stuff. They know, and they're aware, even at the astrological level, and
Oh
they
yeah.
definitely
Oh yeah.
coincide these things that people are aware of and using it against them.
Yeah. Yeah. These guys, these people, these controllers know astrology.
Yeah.
They know it inside and out. Yeah.
It's like that saying, I think it was Rockefeller maybe, that said, millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do.
That's exactly. It's true, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if billionaires do, then how about the people that actually make and print the money? What do you
Yeah.
think they're
Right.
doing?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly, man.
So moving on to the next, in looking at religion, and seeing this same kind of threefold aspect play out. First of all, you have like the narcissism of evangelism, right? This is unhealthy relations with
I just
others.
talked about that in my video, man. I did this morning.
Nice, perfect.
Same thing.
I mean, just stop and think for a moment of the narcissistic mindset that one has to think that your belief, your way is the only way, and everyone else's spiritual path is invalid, to the point that you feel not only okay with, but obligated and compelled to go and impose yourself on people, whether it's through actual missionary work and going to these poor countries and in Africa and stuff like that, and indoctrinating them with your psychopathic belief system that, hey, you don't know us, but we care about you so much that we felt compelled to tell you that if you don't accept what we're going to tell you, you're going to go burn in hell, right? And so we're telling you this because we love you so much that you need to just go ahead and accept what we're telling you, because as you are, you're on the highway to hell. You know what I'm saying? And like, we can't leave you alone. We've got to come and tell you this because we care so much, right? Totally narcissistic. And it also, you know, every religion typically has this whole believer, non-believer, infidels. It's got this divisive, like, us and them mentality, which is a
Yes.
hallmark of every cult, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's no coincidence that that's how that works.
Yeah. Pink Floyd does a great song called "Us and Them." It really has a lot to do with that.
Oh yeah, great song.
And that's what they do, man. They pit one against the other, so there's always always a division going on, so no one can ever get any traction, in context to actually doing some internal work, especially with the savior programming. When you look at the Jesus construct in context to that, what is it always doing? It's always telling you that, hey, he did it for you. He died. He did all. He took all your sin, your rejection, your pain, everything on the cross. So you're in, man. You don't have to deal with it. It's gone. You don't have to go in your underworld. You don't have to do any of that because Jesus already did it all for you. All you got to do is accept that sacrifice. And if you accept that sacrifice, you're in. You're not going to hell anymore. And God's wrath then is against you is sufficed, and
Right.
and so people buy into that because it's an easy path. It's an easy way. They don't have to
Yeah.
do any work that way.
And remember, guys, if you don't sin, Jesus died for nothing,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Right.
So, and then you could totally see how by being in this feedback loop of religion, that's cutting you off from your ancestral wisdom, from
Exactly.
their practices, their traditions, where they actually lived in alignment with natural law, with these cycles of nature, and not in these unnatural, sterilized, systems, constructs, man-made.
Right.
That's cutting you off from that aspect as well. And then finally, it's a spiritual cul-de-sac that cuts you off from your power, right?
Yes.
It's a static system. It hasn't changed, right? It's like you follow this rule book. Here's your do's and don'ts. There's no room for growth, for evolution, for learning lessons, right? Because you got one life to get it right. If you fuck that up, you're going to hell forever.
Exactly.
There's no room for growth and learning the lessons and repeating the cycle. That's it, right? So you convert or you die, physically and spiritually. And of course, there's this whole mindset of let go, let God. Jesus, take the wheel. It's
Yeah.
completely like, oh well, I
Right.
don't have any power. This is, I leave it up to God. He's the one in power. He's the one in control. So I'll
Yeah.
just pray, and not take any action, and uh, and erroneously believe that that's actually going to create a different outcome.
Yeah.
That's cutting you off from your unmanifested potential.
Yeah. It's very much a closed loop system.
Yeah, that's a great way to put that.
Yeah.
Closed loop system.
Yeah.
So yeah, that pretty much covers like the two biggest ones, and obviously people that follow this channel and follow my work know those are the main areas that I focus on because they're the most disempowering to the individual, but they're also the most destructive, observably throughout history as well. So that's just a big, big problem. And again, they run on unconscious trauma. They are what paves the road to accepting those beliefs of your own original sin. And that once you've done that, you've betrayed and subjugated yourself, then you need to project that onto everybody else because you need to bring them down to your level as a slave and
Right.
make sure that
Yes.
they're not standing in their sovereignty because that triggers you because
Yes.
it's just a mirror showing you what you've given up in your own power.
Right. And that's interesting because if you take it to the Asgard aspect, which is your super conscious, that's where all that's being raked out in context because your unconscious mind is projecting up into your belief system. And then
Yes,
that's where Asgard gets inverted in context to the wheel. And then all those loops just keep going on in context to destroying your life,
exactly.
destroying your energy system, your system mechanics, raking you out, harvesting your energy. I mean, it's a sick system, man, what they've created. I mean, it is actually, man, some of the most evil shit. If you want to talk about evil, man, just look at that. Look at those two aspects, government and religion. That's just evil, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point too. That I kind of forgot to mention about. It's not only about those things that it's cutting you off from, but seeing how this loop is actually operating because it starts in the trauma of the unconscious mind, and that goes directly into your beliefs,
Right.
just like you said. And then, of course, you identify with them. So then, like, oh, I'm a Christian. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And then that plays into yourself and so on and so forth, that once you've identified, as you know, you can study things like even what is it, the Atomic Habits, a book that talks about how habits and it, like your behaviors have a lot less to do with like self-discipline and things than you think. It actually has everything to do with who you believe yourself to be, who you're identified
What
with,
you're
and
identifying yourself
acting
with.
out of that ego construct. And that's not, again, that's not inherently a bad thing. If you're identified as a spiritual warrior, as a resilient person, as someone who's committed to truth, someone who does the fucking work, then
Right.
that's who you're going to be. That's what you're acting out of. So
Yeah.
again, this is why ego isn't bad. It's that you need to identify and form your sense of identity around positive things that are actually serving you.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand these people that talk about killing the ego. You can't kill the ego. That's impossible.
That's another one of these feedback loop things,
Yeah.
because it's coming from, so when you undergo trauma, that disrupts your sense of self. It wounds the ego, because your ego is just, this is me, these are my boundaries. When you
Mm-hmm.
have trauma, your boundaries are being violated, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have a trauma response to that. That's what PTSD is it's a lingering effect of trauma that disrupts your sense of self and your identity. And typically people either overcompensate that intrusion of their boundaries by either projecting their boundaries way further out to protect themselves, and that's where you get a controlling narcissist that wants to
Yeah.
control everything, because they think, oh, this is all in my domain, I'm going to control all of this, because out of fear, it's to protect myself, because
Yeah.
I don't know who I am. My sense of self is disrupted. And so I'm going to project that sense of self way further than what's healthy. Well,
Yeah.
what you're talking about, this whole destroy the ego thing, that's the other way. They've been violated in such a way that their psychological response was, there is no me.
Right.
Right. And it's a lot
Right.
easier to cope with that
Right.
violation if,
Yeah.
oh, well, there's no me anyways. Right.
Right.
And it's like, well, that's ironic, because if you have no ego, you have no sense of self, you have no boundaries, then how do you even define what rape is, or abuse, or
Right.
psychological
Right.
warfare?
Or
Because
or pedophilia, for that matter. I mean,
right,
this is why they do what they do.
right,
Everything that's happening on the outside is all constructed to release nerve induction into your nervous system, your tree, and this is how it works, so
yeah,
that your vagus nerve is always getting hit to that 10th cranial nerve, and that's the 10th gate in context to Capricorn, or self, or the goat individual, in context to that gate. See? And so when we're dealing with ourself, or that Capricorn energy, to that aspect, which is what the gate of manifestation, right? This is where we manifest things, to the 10th gate. This is what they've got locked down, because they're manifesting their reality through you, in context of nerve induction, and the systems domination and control that are constantly giving you trauma responses to your nerve, to your tree, to your system, and you never get out of it, because you're in these loops. You just keep repeating it over and over and over again, thinking that somehow you're going to get a different result.
yeah, exactly. So I've just
And the nervous system is Mercury in context to that.
ah,
See, it's rules the nervous system.
nice tie in there.
Yeah.
So I've just dropped the link for anyone who's interested in potentially joining the show. If you want to come on and ask a question, make a statement, add something to the discussion, it's an open invitation to you. It's now pinned in the chat below. So if you're interested in joining that, click that link. It'll take you backstage, and then once we get to the Q&A segment, I will bring you on one by one. So moving on to some other kind of ways we can look at this, or other ways that this shows up here. One would be like conspiracy theories, for example. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with conspiracy theories. Obviously, people get together and conspire and do evil shit. That's pretty much common sense to me. So I'm not, I can run with the best of them when it comes to conspiracy stuff. However, many conspiracy people, truthers, whatever you want to call it, really, really get caught in a loop.
Yes.
And it's coming from unconscious trauma, and they get obsessive with it, and it messes with their discernment, where they can't tell truth from fiction. They kind of buy into any theory if it just sounds compelling, or it sounds right, or oh, that sounds like something they do, it must be true. That your sense of discernment is horribly flawed. And then again, it gets very obsessive. Just look at like how flat earthers are.
Oh
You could
man. Wow.
post something about a picture of your dog or what
Yeah.
you had for lunch, and all of a sudden they're vomiting memes about flat earth, and it's like has
Oh,
nothing to do with anything. And it's like, I mean, if you can believe whatever you want, but that behavior should tell you something right there. When they're so obsessive that they'll make anything about their thing, and then that's their excuse to basically bitch slap you with their truth, what they believe is the truth, because it gives them this feeling of like superiority, that they
mhm.
have the truth and you don't, and you're just a dumb globe head and whatever.
Right.
This is how it works. You see this behavior again and again. I mean, 9 times out of 10 with flat earthers. I know, I just summoned them, and I hope that they come and flood the chat and give me lots of engagement,
I know,
and
right?
this video goes viral. That would be awesome. Bring it on. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you just summoned the flat earthers.
Yeah, the flurfers.
That's great.
So that's one thing. And what does this do? Okay, it cuts off your relationship with other people, because people are like, dude, I like them, but God, every time we hang out, all they want to talk about is flat Earth or veganism or
Right. Yeah.
Monsanto, whatever it is. And again, like, sure, they're poisoning our food, but you gotta have a more balanced perspective, and you can't just live in that. I mean, you can, but it's not healthy, and I don't
No.
recommend it.
No.
And you see this a lot. In fact, I used to be this way. I'm speaking from experience. It took me
Yeah.
a while to realize, okay, I need to kind of evolve past this. I'm stuck in a loop. I was stuck in a feedback loop, and
Right.
it was alienating me from other people, and affecting my relationships. It was cutting me off from my intuition, my wisdom, my ancestral guidance, whatever you want to say, because then you're operating on, like, no, I saw in a meme, this is how it works. It becomes a rigid dogmatic belief.
Yeah.
And that's a theme that you'll see within all of these things that we're talking about. You try to tell people about, true freedom and anarchism, and they're going to give you with the same sound bites that you'll hear 1,000 times ad nauseum. Who will build the roads? And yeah, but warlords would take over. And it's the same shit, because it's not really them. It's just their programming. It's a
Yeah.
dogmatic belief. It's not
Right.
coming from higher consciousness. It's coming
No.
from programs and fear. So, again, with the conspiracy stuff, you're cut off from that intuition, that guidance, that wisdom, and then of course it's gonna cut you off from your unmanifested potential, because I've heard truth
That's
say
the
this.
big deal right there.
Oh, what's the point of doing this or that? What's the point of homesteading? Or they're all just going to take our guns anyways, and we're going to be enslaved. So what's the point? There you go. You're literally subjugating yourself and cutting yourself off without anyone else having to do anything because of your belief. You're saying, oh, what's the point? I'm going to choose to not do anything to create more actual freedom in my life, because, oh, well, it's all just, co-opted anyways, right?
Right. Yeah.
So another one would be the battle of the sexes. This is a really
The competition, right?
always right. The
Man,
victim
that's
Olympics,
terrible too, man.
right? The victim Olympics. Who's more
Yeah.
oppressed? Who's got it worse? Who you don't know what it's like to have a vagina, and this
Right. You
have
don't
a
know what it's like to be a woman, you
right.
know? Well, some people can't figure out whether they're a woman or a man. They don't
They
know.
can't even tell you what a woman is. So,
Yeah.
but that they identify as that, the thing that they can't even define. No, but like this, truthfully, is one of the worst, most destructive and concerning dialectics that's playing out right now, and it's big, right? I mean,
It's
within
huge right now, man. Huge.
trans stuff is definitely part of that. It's playing into that, but even just the flipping the polarity of masculinizing women
Yeah.
and
Right.
emasculating men,
Yes.
it's all part of it. But creating this division, because then you have like angry feminists that think men are the problem, and uh, make jokes about dismembering them down there and stuff like this, just sadistic shit. And
Yeah.
then
It's sick.
men, as a response too, are doing their own toxic stuff, and women are just these succubus, want to take your money and then leave you and cheat on you, and
Yeah.
I'm better off just being celibate, right? You got men going their own way and this kind of thing. Like, this is a real problem. And
It's huge.
if you're looking at a depopulation agenda, what better way to keep people from procreating and perpetuating the human race than making it to where people aren't even interested in sex or having healthy relationships with the opposite gender? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And then they say, what's the point of trying to cultivate anything? It's just going to end up in betrayal anyway. You
Exactly.
know,
There you
and
go. Same
and
shit.
and
And
that's the mindset.
there's your relationships is
Yeah.
being damaged, right?
Yeah.
Oh, like, oh, I'll go my own way because, dealing with dating is just too much work anyways. There's your relationship issue. You're then cutting yourself off from that new potential, because if you believe so harshly, this is just how men are, this is just how women are, that's going to be your experience, and you're probably going to only attract those type of people.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you try it again and it goes exactly how you thought it would, and it just keeps reinforcing this unconscious belief. There's the feedback loop. It
Yeah.
just keeps on perpetuating until you heal that trauma and break that cycle and change it.
Yeah. That's cultivating self worth and self validation, man. Self love. If you don't cultivate that within your life, your relationship in context to vibrational correspondence, and as without, it's gonna be fucking rags, man. You're not gonna find any gold there whatsoever. It's just gonna be lead, you know. And if you don't do the internal work, you can't expect to have this powerful relationship that it's going to end in betrayal, it's going to end in divorce, it's going to end in whatever, because you don't know how to navigate your own consciousness,
Yep,
you know and that's why
exactly.
we have so much family breakup and divorce and betrayal and all this bullshit that goes on, because nobody wants to take responsibility for their own internal condition.
Yep.
you know
So the next kind of thing we can look at, this dynamic playing out, is in nationalism, which is kind of an extension of politics, but a little bit different. But just thinking, you're identifying with people that just happen to live in your geographic region and have your cultural values and this kind of thing, and that everyone else is inferior. And so that it creates division. There's your
yeah.
interpersonal strain on relationships, of how you're seeing yourself as like a human being of planet Earth, rather than, oh, I'm an American.
Yeah.
And this
Right.
kind of thinking often leads to war, and a strong apathy too, because it's like you'll see that there's all these sort of like crimes of war happening by different governments, and
Yeah.
people don't even bat an eye. But as soon as it's American soil, or if it's someone in a foreign country that's American, or even the skin color, which I was going to get to next, but that kind of plays into it too.
It does.
Look at
Yeah.
look at Ukraine, for example. Like, you've had all these atrocities happen in like Syria and Ethiopia and all this kind of stuff. People don't give two shits about that. But then all of a sudden, when it's some other white people and they're getting invaded, like, I stand with Ukraine, and this won't stand, like, that's the kind of mental illness that we're talking about here.
Oh yeah.
And just like it's manufactured outrage, very contrived. And so that plays into the racism thing as well, because again, that's very much coming from trauma and the oppression, the discrimination of different races, and even the trauma of reverse racism. It's like, well, y'all, lumping people of a skin color into one group, y'all are racist, so
Right.
I'm justified in being racist back, when that's in of itself, it's literally doing the thing that you claim is the problem, and is perpetuating the trauma further. And that definitely alienates others and perpetuates division and hatred. And if you're seeing everything from that lens of systematic oppression or racism, and everybody of that color thinks this about you, that's the reality that you're going to live in, and that's the reality, the mindset that you're creating from. So that's just going to keep perpetuating it, rather than shifting that mindset and into a different outcome.
Right, and then you pull people in that have the same, state of mind, and it creates this super prison, man. Because you're all like, oh, we're all buddies now. We're all have the same, belief system going on here, and now we have power. Because now we're more than one. I got all these people on my side. And so that creates another dynamic to that aspect when you're dealing with those type of relationships that are toxic like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they start a movement out of it. I mean, it's just unbelievable, man. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, which is definitely going to get you more of the same, for sure.
oh yeah. And then you get on the bandwagon and you're like, yeah, man, and you feel like you're actually a part of something, but you don't know shit. You don't even know what's going on, you know? You don't have any idea who you are.
Well, yeah, you're shaking your fist at the wrong enemy.
Yeah, exactly, man. And this is why people, getting into the Aquarian energy, that's inverted Aquarian energy in context to groups and doing
Ah,
this type of thing, and
totally.
dealing with how that actually works. I mean, we see it a lot, and the next 20 years, this is something that's going to be popping up quite a bit in context to this transit with Pluto and Aquarius, because it is about transforming the energy, but what are you transforming it to? See, and if you don't have the building blocks of truth within your life, you're going to get pulled into this shit.
Absolutely. So a few more little kind of quick ones to touch on here, before we start wrapping it up is, the idea of addiction is very much a feedback loop, a sort of, that someone can get trapped in, that is, of course, very much rooted in trauma. Someone is running from their pain. They're trying to fill a void inside themselves, and then they're taking action on a self-destructive behavior, and that's going to cut themselves from others. And this could be drugs, but it can be really any kind of
Anything. Yeah.
anything. I mean,
Hmm.
addiction takes many, many forms,
Oh
from
yeah.
eating toxic foods, watching sports all the time. Like, it can literally be anything. But that's going to alienate you from others, because not only is you're kind of pushing people away so you can go do your thing, and not you probably do it yourself to avoid the feeling of judgment.
Yes.
They just don't understand, and or they're always trying to stop you. I mean, think about it. What is an intervention? It's when other people sit you down. This is like what you're running from in that the Western, the Vanaheim
Yeah.
aspect,
Right.
is we care about you. We're not going to let you keep doing this to yourself. That kind of thing. And then you know if you're avoiding, because that's coming from a place of avoidance and suppression, you're definitely not going to be able to create any kind of different outcome, because you keep, instead of facing the pain and facing the trauma head on, you just keep running from it, and you run right to that addiction
Yeah.
again. And so that just keeps running on that hamster wheel and just keeps perpetuating it, and you're just going to keep getting the same results because you're not changing it. You're not healing that trauma as well.
Yeah, you never heal it, man.
Um,
You're just self-medicating with whatever you're addicted to, man.
which is a form of self-sabotage, which is another kind of thing I put. It plays into that, but it's a little different because it could be something as simple as you have some unconscious trauma, and then you say you want XYZ, you say you want that good job, or you want the money, or you want to be able to support yourself as an artist or whatever it may be. But if you have this unconscious belief that's coming from that trauma that somehow you don't deserve that, then you're going to be subconsciously traumatizing yourself.
Yeah,
Sorry, you're going to be self-sabotaging. So you'll get an
destructive behavior.
opportunity
Yeah,
coming for you, and then you'll do something to fuck it up, and you'll be like, "Oh, see," and that just confirms, that's your confirmation bias, that belief that you had, and that's going to perpetuate the cycle because then you took action that self-sabotage that went further into your unconscious mind, and then back into your beliefs again, and that just
yeah,
keeps perpetuating that cycle there.
yeah. It comes back and slaps you in the head, man. You know,
So
just right fucking, just boom, and you're just like going, "See, I told you so." Not understanding that you actually created that
yeah,
yourself.
and then you're using that justification to basically stay in a disempowered mindset of like, "Oh, well, I don't even know why I tried. This
Yeah,
always
what's the
happens."
point? What's the
It's
point of
like,
trying anyway?
yeah, well, of
Yeah,
course it always happens because you keep doing it to yourself.
yeah,
It always
yeah,
happens because you're stuck in a loop and you're not healing your pain, and you're just continuing to perpetuate that.
yeah, and you never get out of it because you don't want to actually face the mirror. You don't actually want to look, you know.
Yeah,
And until you take, like, I like the way Mark Passio says it, quit lying to yourself.
yeah,
I mean, just straight up, quit lying to yourself.
to yourself first and foremost.
Yeah,
Because even there you can see, if you're lying to yourself, you best believe you're lying to other people, and that's playing into your interpersonal relationships as well, because you
absolutely.
have to lie to yourself to keep up that illusion that's keeping you stuck in that, and then you
Hmm.
have to tell everyone else that to prop up that false belief and to
Yeah,
validate it, and again, like I said, projecting that onto other people,
exactly,
which is
man.
going to further alienate you and piss them off. Even the people that really care about you, that's going to hurt them.
Yeah, just keep wearing the mask, man. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Just keep putting it on every morning when you get up. Just keep that mask on.
And the last little point here I can touch on. I mean, these were just kind of things that we're touching on off the top of my head, and I mean, there's probably hundreds more that you could point out, but these were like some of the major ones that really stood out to me. But well, that's what's so interesting about this concept is it's so universally applicable. Like you can see how
Yes.
it applies to anything. You look at it and you see the loop, you see how it's going from your trauma into your beliefs and back around, and it's cutting you off from your other people, ancestral wisdom, and a different outcome, and that's just happening over and over and over again. But the last one I'll touch on here before we wrap it up is like the 9 to 5 grind, because I mean
Yeah.
that's the epitome of a hamster on a wheel right there. Is you
Oh
just
yeah.
run and run and run, and you don't seem to get anywhere. And it's because again, people are often coming from a disempowered mindset of like, oh, the odds are stacked against me. The system is made this way. This is just how it is. And you believe in some level that you deserve this. Like, this is all I'll ever be. I'm not going to go after my true soul desire, my dharma that I actually
Hmm.
manifested here
Right.
to
Right.
do. I'm just going to take what's served to me, punch in and out every single day, and then die. And because you're avoiding your true potential, and
Yeah.
that's gonna, think about all the people that you could the tribe, the network that you could form around going after your passions. Like, look, myself, for example, I've got all these good friends that I've made through network, Rodney and Derek and Brandon and Will, all these close friends that are in network on the One Great Work network, that all because we've stepped into that path and we're doing this. And now, and like, I have an abundance in friendships that I probably wouldn't have otherwise, because just being who I am is kind of alienating me in a certain degree from just to traditional society and how it is, and I'm such a workaholic. I don't really spend a lot of time socializing. I don't go to bars. I don't do social events and stuff like that. So, but that's just one example. And obviously, if you just work your slave job until you retire, and you're definitely cutting yourself off from your unmanifested potential there. So that's just
I
one
mean,
last.
also think about it. Think about it. I mean, why is there so much depression?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, why? Because you aren't tapping into your soul's desire, right? Do you know that almost 45% of the population are on SSRI, which is those
Mm,
serotonin uptake inhibitors,
right.
Zoloft, all that stuff? 45% of American population are on these serotonin uptake
That's
inhibitors.
absurd.
45%, almost half the population are taking these drugs. And
That's
that's
good money right
another thing in context of the pharmaceuticals
there. Yeah.
that perpetuate in context to what, the dark sorcery that we're dealing with to manipulating the brain chemistry, see, and the state of mind.
Imagine this. Your whole business model is based around profiting off of the suffering and,
Unbelievable.
avoidance of pain from other people. I mean, that's like about as low as it gets.
Oh
That's scum of the earth right there.
man, and this is what we're dealing with, and then we wonder why these zombie movies come out. I mean, you got to, if you look at it on the etheric level, there's just walking zombies everywhere, in context to this, because they can't deal with their anxiety, they can't deal with their depression, they don't know how to go through the alchemical process, they don't know how to move energy, they don't know how to look within themselves, and so we're just going to rely on the pharmaceutical industry to be our big pharma daddy.
The magic pill,
The big,
you
give
know.
me the pill.
Yeah.
See?
So I want to wrap this up in kind of rooting this back in solutions, and then we're going to take. We've got one person waiting back to join in us on the conversation here. So it's important to remember, like, this is a feedback loop that you're doing to yourself, right? So again, you're victimizing yourself, but no one's doing this to you. You're choosing to avoid the unconscious trauma, and it's all you, right? You have no one else to blame but you.
That's right.
And Helheim is all about self-reflection. Mother Hela, she appears as a beautiful woman
Hmm.
or a corpse, and that is determinant on you, how you are, your choices, your actions, who you are inside as a person determines how she shows herself to you, because she is a mirror. There's that self-reflection. She's reflecting herself back to you.
Yes.
So only by looking in that mirror and facing that unconscious pain, that's how you're going to reverse this. So it's ironic, because the things that you're avoiding, not that you're missing out on like a victim, but you are avoiding these three aspects, as I pointed to in the wheel. Those are the solutions. The things you're cutting yourself off from are the solutions to this problem, this feedback loop. So first, it's where the ghost door appears, leaning into that self-reflection, working with Mother Hela to really take personal accountability for where you're at and what you're doing, right? Because it just, like, you're not wrong for having trauma. This, it is a psychopathic system. So it's not a
Yeah.
self-judgment of like, it's okay to admit that you've got this going on. We all have it. So that's the first step, is try to get rid of some of that shame and guilt about even just acknowledging it and just embracing, like, okay, like, this is where I'm at right now, but only by taking that step can you ever hope to move past it. And then, it's know thyself, self-awareness, looking in that mirror. And then, of course, you can gain a lot of help and wisdom from leaning into others, your friends, your family, listening to their feedback. It doesn't mean you have to accept everything they say, right? Oftentimes people have negative things to say. They'll say, oh, you can't do that. That'll never work, stuff like that. You have to exercise your own discernment. But if you're one of these people that live in this mindset of, oh, I don't give a fuck what people think of me. I don't listen to anything. You can't tell me nothing.
Yeah.
You're cutting yourself off from a very powerful source of wisdom and insight, because other people can see things that you can't see. You're only looking from the inside out. They're looking from the outside in, and they can share things about yourself that you would never be able to see. So using that as a resource, right? And receiving support in our better choices, but not enabling our bad ones, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's important. We like to trauma bond with people that'll co-sign on our bullshit, that'll
Yes.
go to church with us, or go vote with us, or go shoot heroin with us, or whatever it may be. Those, you're validating that, and you're thinking, oh well, they're doing it too, it must be okay, right? It's lying to yourself, like you said, Rodney.
Again.
So
Yeah.
leaning into the friends that are going to tell you not what you want to hear, but what you need to fucking hear, and actually accept that truth about yourself. That can be such a powerful thing. This is why we've been cut off from others, and we're in these big cities and nobody knows each other. It's all anonymous. Instead of having communities, tribes, where everyone knows about each other, cares about each other, and supports each other. Even when people make mistakes, like that's how they would deal with things in a tribal setting. They don't automatically just kick somebody out or kill them. they
Right.
they have like their own intervention
Right.
of sorts, and be like, hey, what's going on with you? Like, why are you hurting your own family? you know
Yes.
Even if they're doing something criminal or something like that. It's a
Yeah.
totally different mindset, coming from care and the human family mindset. Connecting with our guides and our ancestors, right? Connecting with
Yeah.
traditional healing, traditional medicine, traditional food, things like that, and just tuning in and listening to the wisdom that they have, that they're whispering to us, and you have to shut the fuck up and listen to actually hear that whisper, because you're
Yeah.
yelling and everybody else is yelling over it. You have to calm everything and actually tune in to hear that whisper of wisdom
Yes.
coming in from them.
Absolutely.
And then finally, you have to choose to make different choices that lead to a different future. And it's interesting how, like, people like Joe Dispenza, these are modern scientists talking about this stuff, but it's nothing new. And I love looking at all the ways where modern science is further just corroborating ancient, very, very old wisdom that's always been there. But now you can look at it from both sides, from the
Yes.
spiritual, the traditional aspect, as well as, oh, well, now it's actually being proven in scientific studies and things
Right.
like that.
Absolutely.
So Joe Dispenza talks a lot about, you have to be able to imagine a different future, or you're just going to keep creating the same experience for yourself that's coming from that trauma.
Yeah. And
That
that's your iMagi Nation, and that's
Yes.
working with that in the circle of the mage, being able to become the I am, and then creating that future within yourself in the present, and being that now. See,
Yeah,
seeing yourself in that now, not in the future, not somewhere in the sweet by and by, but right now. And then setting down and saying, okay, what choices do I have to make here to be that? See?
mm,
And this is all part of doing the internal work.
absolutely.
you know I was a song came to my mind while you were talking. It's off of Pink Floyd's album called The Final Cut. It's called Your Possible Past, and I just want to read a few lyrics from it, because it's
Okay.
really interesting, because it's one of those songs about um, being able to access your child again. Uh, it says here, they flutter behind you, your possible past. Some bright eyed and crazy, some frightened and lost. A warning to anyone still in command of their possible future to take care. In derelict sightings, the poppies entwine. There's that,
The poppy field.
there's that addiction, right? The
Hmm.
poppies entwine with cattle trucks lying in wait for the next time.
Mm.
See, harvesting the energy. See, because you're still on these loops. What do? They throw the cattle in to take them to the slaughterhouse, man. Right? I mean, that's what's going on here, and then um the chorus is, do you remember me, how we used to be?
Mm.
Don't you think we should be closer? And that's the ancestral energy that he's talking about there, what we've been cut off from. See?
And each other.
And each other, exactly. and
Damn.
then and then the last verse goes, by the cold and religious we were taken in hand, shown how to feel good but told to feel bad. Strung out behind us, the banners and flags of our possible past lie in tatters and rags.
Damn. That's powerful. Thanks for sharing that, man. I
Called
love Pink Floyd.
your possible past off the final
I'll have
cut.
to listen to that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up the topical discussion for today. So let's open it up to some questions, and discussion. But before we do, I wanted to quickly touch on the Patreon. First of all, thank you to Edos Hugh and Slope Oak for being pretty long-time supporters of the Patreon. Anyone interested in helping support what I do, even in a small way, it's only $4.99 a month. You get some nice little perks here, but least of which you get the good feeling of just supporting the truth and the great work here. And so do check that out. Go look and see what the benefits are of doing that. And I appreciate everyone who's still with us listening in. I think this has been a really powerful discussion so far. Really great segment, and powerful topic to consider. I see there's a question here. By the way, people, leave your questions in the comments in the chat below if you want to have it addressed here on the show. If you're interested in actually joining in, you can be on video or just audio only if you're not comfortable being on camera. The join link is pinned in the chat as well. So I openly encourage anyone to hop in. So this says, so the way society is designed is a reflection of our collective inaction and wrong action. What is the first step as an individual or collectively to change that? Great question. First of all, yes, that's exactly what it is. It's the law of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. So it's like looking at the forest and the trees, right? Each tree is an individual. But when you have a bunch of trees clustered together, that creates a forest, right? That collective is real, but it's also a concept. It's not literally true, it's conceptually true. You have to have that holistic intelligence online to be able to see that. So understand that anything that's true of the forest must first be true of the individual trees, first of all. And so you don't have control over the collective. You're not the collective, by the way.
Exactly.
You are a human. You're not
Exactly.
humanity. There's a difference. So what you have control over is yourself,
Yes.
your domain, your kingdom, your queendom, your sovereignty, your boundaries. Anything within it is yours. You're a monarch. Anything outside of it is not you. And that's for out there to decide. You can have influence as long as you're not actually causing harm or violating anyone else's rights through coercion or just violation of consent. So what is the first step as an individual or collectively to change that? Well, there's nothing you can do to collectively do anything because you're only one person. You're never going to be a collective. You're just yourself. So first of all, change yourself, work on yourself, not only in internal alchemy, practicing, cultivating emotional mastery, taking in better knowledge, better information to yourself, always as a lifestyle, as a commitment. That's first of all. Then speak it to others in a respectful way, right? Not in a, like we talked about earlier, evangelical, oh, my way is so superior, you're doing it wrong, here, let me save you kind of way. More just, opening conversations, but being respectful of where people are at, what they believe, and just sharing, like, for example, instead of framing everything as you should do this, just say the same thing, but instead just say, I do this, or this works for me,
Yeah.
or I think this, right? Instead of just this is you're wrong, do that, you should, whatever. Uh, it's such a subtle shift, but really makes a huge difference in how it will or will not trigger somebody and get their defenses up. But most of all, live that truth. Living it, embodying it, being the example of it is far more powerful than speaking about it or telling people. It's like, show them, don't tell them. I mean, you can tell them too, but I'm just saying it's much more effective to be the example, and people will come to you and be like, dude, I mean, what are you doing that's working? Because clearly you've got your shit together, you're successful, you've got all this freedom in your life. I want that. Tell me, and then it's not you shoving it down their throat. They're coming to you asking you the questions. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can be there to serve and help lift people up, giving the hand up rather than the hand out.
Yeah, your life
And
becomes the witness.
to wrap up this idea, doing that is the best and really the only thing you can do, because if you're doing that, you're helping others to do the same for themselves. That will eventually transfer into the collective state. There's nothing you can do to do things at a collective level. All you can do is create change that propagates at the individual level until it becomes an emergent property of the collective.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Yeah, and you input that into the collective in context to your own individual path work and how you are leveling up your own consciousness, and then your life becomes the witness. I mean, if I'm coming to you and I have a fruit tree, and I have the fruit tree over here, and I says, "Hey man, take some fruit off and eat it," and there's no fruit on that tree, and you look at it and go, "Well, there's nothing there to eat. You don't have anything on your tree, man." So the witness becomes the fruit on your tree in context. See,
Mhm.
what have you actually manifested?
You'll know them by their fruits.
Exactly.
Exactly. Right. And it's like, if your fruit's all rotten and your tree's all shriveled and you're sitting there trying to tell people, oh, you should do this, you should do that. It's like, if you're not embodying that, like, why should I listen to you? Your fruits is trash, bro. Like,
Look, the universe is going to test you on everything that you proclaim that you're doing, whether
yeah,
you're doing it or not. If you're speaking it into the ethers, you're going to be tested. And let me tell you, if you are in inversions and you haven't done any work, you're going to get your ass kicked
facts.
because of what you're speaking. And it's a lie. It's not true. It's not authentic.
It's
See?
like somebody that, that's a MMA fighter, and they're running their mouth like they got, like they're
Yeah, right.
badass. Well, first of all, that's going to attract, like, if you're telling everybody you're the best, that's going to attract people to challenge you. They're going to be like, oh, really? Well, let's see about that. Then they're going to take you into your ring, and then what you have to say is worthless. It's
Doesn't
who you
matter at
are.
that point, does it?
What you're made of is what's going to do the talking inside that ring. And
Yeah.
if you haven't done your work, you're going to get your ass handed to you.
What disciplines have you put in your life? See?
Yes,
And if you haven't incorporated those disciplines and integrated those into your life, you're going to get your ass kicked. See?
absolutely.
And that's why you don't mess with the runes, because the runes will kick your ass if you haven't actually incorporated those energies into your life and flip the merc stave. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's part
Nice.
of the deal, man.
Yeah. So I guess without further ado, let's bring on Derek, who's been waiting patiently for good little while now, and bring him on here.
Hey,
Derek,
Derek,
what's up, brother?
how you
Yo,
doing,
gentlemen,
man?
Oh, patiently is too kind, but you guys had me cracking up with the fruit and getting your ass kicked and all that. And I might be from California, but I'm not some kind of shriveled raisin, if you will. But
The land of fruits and nuts, right?
I know, right?
man, you guys brought up so many great points today. I was loving every minute of it, and yeah,
Thank you.
the allegories, analogies of the Wizard of Oz, and all that stuff. And first of all, I really appreciated what you brought up with the whole 9 worlds thing, which I don't know if you mentioned. I'm looking at it right now in that good old mini course toolbox. Check it out on the Wizard Factory. But yeah, free download. Thank you so much, Logan. Appreciate that. I've never heard it broken down like that before. I've obviously heard things from Rodney and Tepicus.
Great concept.
Yeah, totally. And so yeah, negative feedback loops. I mean, this is such a great concept, and it kind of brings in mind, because we're talking about how the shadow is running the show, the subconscious, unconscious, whatever, and how we're relating that to like the shadow ego and the dragon, the untamed part, and not tending the fires properly, so the fire is like breathing out a little. You're burning yourself up in a bit.
Yeah.
And like the whole smog thing, that's fucking so great. I love those movies and books, of course. But yeah, so a dragon eating its own tail. This is what people are doing, the self-medication and all these things of just, letting the negative feedback loops consume them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but the thumbnail I chose, I put the artwork. That it was actually Ouroboros in the middle there.
Oh, cool! I didn't know that.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
See, you're catching it, man. See,
I try.
You're
thanks, y'all. I was inspired by that, and just like understanding how to break those cycles and negative feedback loops by using the proper wheels within wheels, or even the circle of the magician. And yeah, like the 9 worlds is like a circle, a wheel, as is astrology. And just what is that? It's the 8 point like right action, talking about natural law and objective morality, right thought, right action, right mind state, all these things. And mind state, of course, is the first natural law principle. So people are still like not out of the first gate, because you guys were talking about this and that. Like people are still bickering about the shape of whatever, and like people's diets and all these things. And I get this too, Logan. I don't understand, and that's why we're trying to dissolve the divides and recenter some of these polarities that people are so polarized on, because there's those ego attachments towards like, oh well, I studied like a couple hours or umpteen hours of this thing and I felt really gung-ho about it.
I got my YouTube degree.
Masters
in YouTubeology.
Oh god, that's priceless, man.
And I've been doing this for 10 years. It's like I'm still feel like I'm at the beginning, because I'm just like trying to dabble into new things. And there's so much to learn about myself. And if people aren't taking that humble path, right, I don't, there is no arrival point, right? And if we're going to be able to like rest on our laurels, then it's actually at a point where we're a lot more sovereign. There's not a whole lot of worry. There's not that inner conflict. And we have really good relation with pretty much anyone we come across, because we can wield that magic properly, because we have that right image in our mind of the mage, if we break down that I am to the image. But I mentioned that to Rodney the other week. But
I mean, how are you going to ever be able to empower yourself if you carry a disempowered mindset of yourself, your image of yourself, and that's the deal, man. I mean, taking it down to the least common denominator, how do you see yourself? See, that's the question, man. How do you actually see yourself? And and this is where, if you're not actually dealing with, editing your subconscious mind, doing the shamanic work, I mean, taking it back to your YouTubeology. I took a course on shamanism, man. So now I'm a shaman, You know, I mean,
Of
I
course.
mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's the same bullshit, man.
Where do I
You
sign up?
know,
Yeah.
it's just crazy. But you
But
know,
things are monetized, there's that motive. Of course, so people can make some easy cash and put on, a fake front like these masks you're talking about earlier. Yeah, of course. You know,
oh yeah,
anything
man.
sells these days. It's like, wow, like everything that's sacred is, what now? Like to bring back the forefront of, these sacred principles, we're going to be fucking embodying and living that shit and being the proper examples like Logan was talking about earlier, right? That's part of the fucking solution. I'm sick of
Yeah,
people
man.
just fucking talking about this shit and just lip serving it. And when you actually see the reflection in the mirror, and also speaking of mirrors, people are so, ensconced in their shadow ego and they're kind of got that narcissistic stuff,
It's
that
terrible, man.
vampiric energy. Well, vampires don't really can't, sorry, they cannot see themselves in the mirror. They don't have that
That's
reflection,
right.
introspection type of
That's
thing.
a good point. Yeah,
Ooh, I like it.
that's good, man. That's true. They can't see themselves in the
Unfortunately.
mirror. Wow, that is so true. Wow, that's cool. That's a
How
great,
can we kind
great
of
image.
rub it around so they can actually see some shit up in there?
Yeah, and they can and they cannot be in the sun either, right? I mean, that's the other thing. You
Allegorically, what
know?
does that mean, right? So
Yeah,
The light of awareness completely sets them ablaze and destroys them,
exactly.
mm,
Yeah, yeah.
and they can't source their energy from within. They have to feed on other people as like a parasite.
Right, right. Exactly, man. And
Because
what?
why? Because someone fed on them first. That's how you
Yeah,
become a vampire. Because
that's right.
starts with that traumatic event, and then you're perpetuating that, and you're just acting out that same thing onto other people for literal ever, because they're immortal, right? It
Right,
just goes on and on and on until they change something.
right. And the way you kill a vampire is throwing a stake through the what? Through the heart.
Mm,
See?
that's hardcore, man.
You know?
hardcore
You got.
intelligence.
This is the whole thing, man. It just again, that goes back to the title of the show. It's that loop, right? I gotta feed. I gotta feed on the blood, the trauma in the blood.
Right?
See,
The hunger is insatiable. You
exactly,
can
man.
feed for a little while and you'll be satisfied, but you'll always need to do more.
You'll need another fix, man.
Yep,
Yep,
that's good.
Yeah.
yep.
Great stuff.
What about bearing those fruits that have that, self-perpetuating life force energy type of thing? That true awakened heart, that osculating life force, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any questions in the chat below, or you want to click the link and join in to this discussion? You're welcome to. Otherwise, we'll probably get ready to shut this down here pretty soon. But gentlemen, do you have anything else you want to add? Put you on the spot real quick.
Go ahead, Derek. Go ahead.
Uh, I love how people are interested in, learning about things, hopefully about themselves a lot more than just all the exterior distractions out there. Yes, we should be aware of certain things, but where are we at as far as like the unity in the community of whatever kind of truth seeking stuff? I mean, I feel like people that speak about wanting freedom not taking the right actions, and we seem to be just there. Not, I wouldn't say we, but you notice around there's, I mean, in your comments you were showing earlier like an hour ago, a lot of trivial stuff going on just for what, right? Do they
Mhm.
need, are they seeking validation?
Projecting their unconscious trauma. I had to block a couple people because they
Mm,
were being so disrespectful and
Wow.
just toxic. I
I'm
mean, it was,
sorry, man.
you know, the way I handle it, and people often they're like, "Man, why haven't you blocked this person?" And it's like there's multiple reasons. First of all, I like to let people expose themselves
Boom.
and
Yeah.
show everyone who they are. And
Yeah.
I don't delete comments. I leave that shit out there for everybody to see. That's fine. And I like to use it as an opportunity to practice exercising my own boundaries. And exercise. Look, I don't. It doesn't matter how disrespectful a person gets. I'm going to be firm in my boundaries, but I never stoop to their level. I don't start calling them names or
Right.
being like unduly disrespectful in that way. I don't need to because I stand in the truth, and that's the only power. That's the only weapon that I need.
Right.
And I'll put that forth, and I'll give some boundaries. And if they continue to step on that and to push me around and stuff like that, that's usually when I'll either so I have like this system of like, escalation uh, to where first I'm asserting, hey, I don't like the way you're talking to me, like tone it down, or, we'll see what happens next, and then I'll just kind of step away from it and just like, you know what, this person clearly has no interest in an authentic communication, an authentic conversation, and just leave it be. This person that I blocked, I only did so because I did that. And then they were going around like commenting on other people's comments. And this guy's, how does anybody listen to this, and laugh reacting just to stuff. And that's where I draw the line, and I'll block somebody because they're just like, completely unhinged, projecting their trauma all over the place. That's like, okay, you're done.
Yeah.
You know,
Defamation of character, man. When that starts
zero.
happening, man, you're just
Yep.
you're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going full force in just trying to, yes, discredit me, make me look bad, they're
Exactly.
stupid, and get people on their side that are my friends in other threads and stuff like that. That's where I'm like, they have zero self-control. It's like, I'm not going to put up with that. So that's where my line is. Most people are like, oh, they disagreed with me, I'm going to block them. I'm a little bit more tolerant, but in a reasonable way, I feel like.
Fuck yeah, I've noticed that, and I appreciate that. And I've noticed, there's people out there, and they're doing their thing. That's cool. They have the only content they seem to put out is just their stuff on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And when people, even I've tried to like be like, well, you're not necessarily correct on this, and they just like ignore it, or it's like they feel like they're on some kind of, and of course, these platforms have limited ways of communication. We don't get to hear the tonality, people's voices, and yeah, people want to throw a laugh reaction or something like that. We don't know what kind of sense of humor they have, or there's all these factors that play into mine. And Logan, I love the fact that you have a real high tolerance, and you let people, speak their mind, whatever, but you hold that threshold of boundary, and it's it's a good way of cultivating your art of debate and ways to argument and deal with folks, and that's
Exactly.
fucking great, So yeah, man, that's cool. I wish more folks were like you. That's all,
Oh,
I guess.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Looks like you got yourself a new subscriber, Derek. That one guy.
Oh, that one guy. Oh, thanks, brother,
That
man.
one guy.
That's a funny name. That's great.
Cheers, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
That boy.
Thanks for that reflection. Thanks to everyone who's joined us here on the live. I really am having so much fun doing these, even though the numbers seem to be going down a bit. And like I said, my subscribers been dwindling. I'm not sure what's up with that, but if it's just helping 10 people or 15 people, then I'll keep showing up and, doing it simply because it's the right thing to do. And hopefully somebody out there is getting value out of this. So if you did, the one thing I ask you to do is please just like the video. That's the best, most easy thing. It takes 1 second, and it tells YouTube, that you really did get value enough to take action rather than being a passive listener. So I appreciate everyone who did like it. Share with your friends, subscribe down below, hit the bell, and thank you simply for being here. Thank you for being part of the Wizard Factory tribe. Thank you to my excellent guests, Rodney and Derek, for hopping in here, sharing their beautiful selves and their wisdom with us as well. Always, useful to round out the stream, and bring different energies in. Uh, Definitely a lot to consider in terms of what Rodney shared with the astrological stuff, and encourage everyone to stay in their power, to not be afraid of Mercury retrograde, not seeing it as some kind of malevolent thing that is icky and, oh, what a drag. And it's like, no, see it as an adventure, get excited, meet it head
Yes.
on,
Yes.
and extract the max value out of that experience. So, you know, that's what we're going to call it for today. Much love to you all. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week, of course, noon central every single Saturday. And until next time, be empowered, inspired, and encouraged.
Much love, everybody.